Good day. So again, this is Teacher Claire and today mag-discuss ta about linear functions. So unsa man ni ang linear functions? So a linear function is defined by f of x is equal to mx plus b where m and b are real numbers. Its graph is a line with slope m and y-intercept b. If m is not equal to 0, then the degree of the function is 1. If m is equal to 0 and b is not equal to 0, then the degree of the function is 0. If m is equal to 0 and b is equal to 0, then the degree of the function is not defined. So, ang manotice ninyo diri, ang linear function, parihara ni siya og itsura sa katong atoang linear equations, di ba? If you remember, we have a linear equation in the slope-intercept form na y is equal to mx plus b. So, kung ato lang isulat, ang linear equation nato dito sa ato ang previous lessons, di ba, is y is equal to mx plus b. So, ang linear function, similarly, naasad siya in the form na fx is equal to mx plus b. So, meaning di ay, kaning f of x, ang x gisulod siya sa parenthesis is equal ra ni siya sa y. Pariha ra ni si f of x kang y. Okay, so, now na ato na nang na-clear, unsa may but pasabot sa the rest of the sentence, kaning its graph of a line with slope and y-intercept b. So, di ba? Kung ato ni siyang i-graph ang slope-intercept form, makakuha ta og line. Okay, kay linear functions man siya, obviously, line sa dangyahang graph. Okay, so arita sa degree of the function. So, kung ang m daw sa function is not equal to 0, meaning ang m niya kay na ay value either 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, etc. or negative values, ang degree sa function niya is 1. If you recall, the degree of a polynomial sa inyong grade 7 na lesson, di ba? The degree of the polynomial is the highest degree or the highest exponent rather contained in that polynomial. So, pasabot dire, kung naa daw siya sa form na f of x is equal to mx plus b, nya si m kay naay value, dili siya 0, so naagid tay variable na x. Nya pila may exponent sa variable kung dili na to makita ang variable or ang exponent niya dira. Like for example, in this case, the variable x, pila may exponent ana niya? Di ba ang exponent niya is an imaginary 1. Pero dili na to isulat lang ang 1. Pero given na siya na naadyo na siya exponent na 1. And that is the degree of our function. Kung dili 0 si m. If si m daw kay 0, obviously if m is 0, the variable x will also be 0. So wala na siya ang mx. Ang mabilin ra dira is b. If m is 0 and b is not equal to 0, so ang b ra ang nabilin, iyahang degree is 0. Kay the exponent of any whole number is an imaginary 0. So, ang iyahang degree, the highest degree niya is 0. But if both m and b are 0, then dili ta maka-define sa degree sa function kay wa may mabilin. Okay, so unsa man na siya, unsaon man nato na siya pagtan-aw. Let's have this example. Here, we have the first example. If our linear function is f of x is equal to 3x minus 4, obviously, iyang m has a value of 3, niya iyang b has a value of negative 1. Ang highest nato na exponent dira, diba kani exponent niya is 0, then for the variable exponent niya is 1. Highest niya na exponent, which is our degree for this function, is 1. Okay, if we have another example sa function, linear function gyapon ni siya. So, ang naa niya is f of x is equal to negative 4. So, ang highest niya na degree, since m here is equal to 0, diba? Kung 0 si m, mawala raman na ang x kay 0 times any number is 0. So, si negative 4 ra ang nakabilin. Highest degree niya is 0. So, ang degree ani na function is 0. Pero what happens if both M and B are 0? Since si M ug si B ang 0, y nabilin. So, ang degree ani niya is not defined. So, I hope na nakasabutaan na regarding sa degree of a function. For a linear function, since linear man siya, highest degree ani niya is 1. Kung ang highest degree na gali of a given function exceeds 1, dili na siya linear function. It could be a quadratic function, it could be a cubic function, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's have an example. Question na naa diri, is the function f defined by f of x is equal to x plus 5 a linear function? Function ba ni si f of x is equal to x plus 5? If yes, determine the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so obviously this is a linear function. Giunsam na to pagaybaw. Yang highest degree is 1. So yang highest na exponent diri is 1. So, since it is a function, answer ta og yes. Ya kay yes man ang atong answer, we have to determine the slope and the y-intercept. So, pila man ang value sa m ani or ang iyahang slope. The value of m here is equal to 1. So, m is the coefficient na tupad sa atong variable na x. Nya, although wala tayo makita na number dira, it is a given na na siya imaginary 1. Okay, how about for the y-intercept or ang atong b, pila may value ana niya? So, ang value sa atong b obviously is positive 5. Okay, let's have another example pa jud. So, is the function g defined by g of x is equal to negative 2x a linear function? If yes, determine its slope and y-intercept. Okay, basig naglibog mo, hala ma'am, g na lagi ang gigamit, dili na lagi f. Okay, so in this case, ang common lang nagigamit na letter to symbolize function is f. Pero, pwede na ninyo siya mailisan og any variable. It will still have the same meaning. So, ang pag-call lang ani or ang pag-read nimo ani is f of x. If you have another variable such as g, gamit, igtawag nimo ana, if you read that one that is called g of x, if nanasad kay laing variable, let's say h, so igbasa nimo h of x, nanasad kay laing variable, let's say j, kay ganahan ka, nalahi-lahi na letter imong gamiton. So, to read this one, that is j of x. But, essentially, those are still representing functions. So, balik ta sa question. The question is the function g defined by g of x is equal to negative 2x a linear function? So, tanaw na to ang iyahang degree. So, pila may highest exponent ana niya? It is 1. So, the answer is yes. Linear function gapon na siya. Nya, if yes, let's determine the slope and the y-intercept. So, pila may value sa tong slope dira or value sa ato ang m? Obviously, m is, the value of m is negative 2. For our b or iyahang y-intercept, walang tayo makita dira sa na y-intercept. So, iyahang value is 0. So, I hope nasabtan na siya. Let's have another example. Determine the values of the function f if f of x is equal to negative, 4x minus 3 at x is equal to negative 3, 0, and 1. Give their meanings and ordered pairs. So this time, we are asked to determine the value of the function. Okay. So, sa function, moong naan na siya f of x. Kay since it is a function, mura na siya og mao na ang iyahang ruling ba or ang iyahang process na gigamit ba. So, kani siya mao ni siya ang process na atong gigamit. Nya natay input. Ang atong input kay kani si x. Ya pangitao nato ang output niya which is kanang ang value na atong makuha after we change the value of x. So mao na siya ang function, essentially. So, mura siya og machine na naa siya input, naa siya process, then nasa siya output. For this problem, gihatagan ta og three different inputs rather, na kailangan natong isolve for the linear function, or three different values na kailangan natong i-substitute sa x para matan-aw nato unsay gawas niya na value, unsay mugawas niya na value sa function kung mauna ang atong ibutang na input value or x value. Ang tulo ka value nato is we have negative, 3, 0, and 1. So, ato ni siyang isolve tagsa-tagsa. So, again, our function is f of x is equal to 4x minus 3. So, let's solve this if x is equal to negative 3. Una ta sa negative 3. So, to do that, we will simply change the value of x here to negative 3. So, ang mahitabuan na, mahimo na ni siyang f of negative 3 is equal to 4x minus 3. Inani na ang kalabasan sa tuang function na siya pagsulat. Kay ang atong gipangita man is specifically negative 3. Pilay value sa function kung negative 3 ang iyahang x. So, atong isolve. So, this will become f of negative 3 is equal to 4 times, since ang ato ang x man ang atong i-change, usbo na to or atong i-substitute ang value ni x dire to negative 3 minus 3. That will become 4 times negative 3 or negative 12 minus 3, or that is negative 15. So, if we have f of negative 3, kung negative 3 ang value sa ato ang x, ang value sa ato ang function, kung atong isolve is negative 15. Meaning, kung negative 3 si x, inig-solve nimo negative 15 ang mugawas na value sa imuhang function. Ang ordered pair na to ani, kay gipangitaan man sad ta og ordered pair, so we already gave the meaning. Unsa may ordered pair na to ani? Ordered pair niya is si x kay negative 3, si y kay negative 15. Kung ato na siyang isulat as an ordered pair, that is negative 3, negative 15. So, mauna ni siya ron ato ang ordered pair. Kuha. Okay, let's have the next value. So, mo to siya. What if x is equal to negative 3? Okay, this time, we will solve for the value of the function if it is f of 0. So, kung f of 0 siya, unsa kahay value sa to ang given function. So, at f of 0, we will substitute x to the value of 0. So, that becomes x times 0 minus 3. Obviously, 4 times 0, that is just 0. Minus 3. So, pila may mabilin ana? That is just negative 3. So, f of 0 is equal to negative 3. Meaning, kung 0 ang ato ang x na value, ang mugawas na value sa function is negative 3. So, unsa man ang ordered pair na atong makuhaan ni? For the ordered pair, we will have, kaya diba si x na to is 0, x is equal to 0, y is equal to, ang atong na-solve sa ato ang solution ganina, negative 3. And if we write this in as an ordered pair, we will have 0, negative 3. So, mo ni ang mugawas nato na ordered pair. Okay, last one. So, na-solve na nato siya. If x is equal to negative 3, na-solve na sa nato if x is equal to 0. Okay, so let's try to solve it if x is equal to 1. If x is equal to 1, pila ka high value sa to ang function. So, we will have that as f of 1. So, f of 1 is equal to, again, 4x minus 3. Then, ato lang i-substitute ang value na 1 kang x. So, that will become 4 times 1 minus 3. Or simply, 4 times 1, pila man na? That is 4 minus 3. Or, f of 1 nato is equal to positive 1. So, mo ni ang value ni function or ni y kung ato ang x is 1. So, if we write that as an ordered pair, si x nato is equal to 1, si y nato is equal also to 1. As an ordered pair, that will become 1, 1. Okay, so I hope nakasabot ra mo ato na discussion. That is how you determine the values of the function if you are given values for your x. So, imo rang i-substitute ang value na gihatag para kang x sa imuhang function to solve for the value of the function or to solve simply for y. Okay, now this time we are given a table of values. Now we have to determine if the given table of values will represent a linear function. So tanaw na to, linear function ba ka? Yung saan ko pagkaibaw, linear function ba ni siya na puros raman ni values ang gihatag sa ako. Okay, to do that one, kwao na to ang first difference. Kay linear function man siya, so ang first difference na atong kwaon sa x ug sa y. Nya kung equal ragali ang first difference between the values of the x and y coordinates, meaning linear function na ang atong example. So, unsaon man na teacher, unsaon man na nato pag-solve. So, mingon kalitag solve for the first difference, meaning imo ra nang i-subtract ang value sa coordinates na gihatag for the x, imo sang i-subtract for the y. So, mag-una ta sa x. So, if we subtract negative 1 and 0, negative 1 minus 0, itong isulat, negative 1 minus 0, that is simply, pila man na siya, that is simply negative 1. Pwede sa din ninyo buhaton the opposite way. Mag-una mo sa 2 minus 1. Okay ra na siya. Okay, as long as the first difference is the same or equal. So, dapat, kung atong isubtract si 0 ni 1, dapat makakuha sa tag negative 1. So, if ato na siyang isulat, that is 0 minus 1, that is equal to negative 1. And finally, ato sang isubtract si 1 minus 2. So, 1 minus 2, that is simply negative 1. So, as you can see here, ang first difference, okay, let me just erase this. Okay, as you can see here, ang first difference sa ato ang x coordinates are all negative 1. So, equal ra siya ang first difference niya. So, meaning, pwede ni siya mahimong linear functions. Pero ato sang isolve ang first difference sa atong y coordinates. Kaya nga no moingon man ko na first difference. For different functions man good, pwede nimo makuha ang second difference, third difference niya. Meaning, ana, di ba, first difference man ni nato. Kung ato nang isumpay, ato nang padayunon, kung ano sad nato ang difference ani nila, which is negative 1 minus 1, that is just positive, that is just 0. Negative 1 minus 1, that is just 0. Kaning 0, 0 na naadre, mo na natong gitawag na second difference. Okay, so, linear function raman ang ato ang gi-deal with, dili ta maghisgot anang second difference. Kutob ra ta aning first difference niya. Okay, so I hope clear na siya kung unsay pasabot nako sa first difference. Okay, arita sa ato ang y coordinates. So, dapat sa ato ang y coordinates kay equal gihapon ang value sa ato ang first difference. So, kung atong isubtract 5 minus 1, that is just 4. Okay, 5 minus 1, that is equal to 4. Okay, the next one, we have 1 minus negative 3. 1 minus negative 3 is simply equal to, again, 4. And lastly, negative 3 minus 7 minus negative 7 rather. Negative 3 minus negative 7, that is also equal to positive 4. So, if you have noticed, ang first difference po sa ato ang y coordinates are also equal. So, equal ang first difference sa atong x coordinates, equal ang difference sa atong y coordinates. So, meaning, this table of value is a linear function. So, linear function is siya kay equal man ang first difference sa x o sa y coordinates. So, that is given in this rule na if the first differences of the x coordinates are equal and the first differences of the y coordinates are also equal, then the table of values represents a linear function. So, mo to atong example ganina. So, sa atong example ganina, equal ang atuang first difference sa x coordinates o sa y coordinates. So, linear function to siya. Let's have another example. In this example, as you can see here, we have a different table. So, atong i-determine if linear function ba ni siya or dili. So, we will do the same process sa atong gibuhat sa atong example ganina. We will just look for the first difference. So, negative 3 minus negative 2, pila man na siya, that is just equal to negative 1. Negative 2 minus 1, that is equal to negative 3. Yeah, 1 minus 0, that is equal to positive 1. Then 0 minus 1 is equal to negative 1. So, based on the values of the first difference alone, sa x palang galidaan, bisag dili na nato isolve ang first difference values for our y coordinates, makita nato na dili ni siya linear function. Ngano man, dili man equal ang ilang first difference. So, negative 1 ang nag-una, then nahimong negative 3, then nahimong 1, then nahimong na sang negative 1 balik. So, dili ni siya a linear function. So, not a linear function. So, bisag dili pa nato isolve ang ato ang y, first difference ato ang y, kay baw na ta daan, based lang sa ato ang x coordinates na, dili ni siya linear function. So, that is how you determine linear functions kung tagaan kag table of values. Okay, what if this time, pangitaan ka sa domain and range of the linear function? So, if you recall sa ato ang previous lesson, naghisgot ta about domain and range of the function. So, sa linear function, we will try to determine the domain and the range of the linear functions. So, to determine if a function is linear, let's say for example, na kaani na graph, to determine if a function is linear, nani ra imong buhaton. Maghuwa kag lapis, imaginary lapis ni or lapis or anything that could create a line, nya imo siyang itunong sa imuhang graph. If ang imuhang lapis or ang imuhang line would only intersect the graph once at any given point, meaning function na siya. For example, mao ni ang atong line. Let's say mao ni ato ang lapis, kani siyang yellow na highlight. Let's say mao na atong lapis. Bisag atong ibutang atong lapis diri na part sa graph or diri na part sa graph or bisag nag-una sa graph, you can see na ikausa ra gyud siya ni intersect sa ato ang graph. Kung ari na to first ibutang lapis, it intersects the graph once, which is at this point. If we put it in the middle, nag-intersect siya, ikausa ra gihapon. If we put it on the side, ikausa ra gihapon siya nag-intersect. So, meaning, this type of graph is a function. Okay. So, unsa man di ay ang noun sa graph na dili siya function. Let's take for example, kanina graph. Okay, if this is our graph, yeah, again, we will take our imaginary pencil. Atong i-align ang atong imaginary pencil dira at any part of the graph. So, let's say, diri na to gibutang ang atong lapis. If you notice, ang atong lapis ni-intersect siya sa atong graph 2 times. So, mo ni ang first part na nag-abot sila sa graph, mausad ni ang second part na nag-abot sila sa graph. Meaning, ang inani din na klase na graph, dili ni siya function. Okay? Kay kaduha man siya nakaigo sa atuang imaginary line or atong gamit na test line. But for linear functions, since we are dealing with linear functions, line ra jud na ang atuang mahimong graph. Okay, so since it is a line, essentially function na siya. Kay kausa ra man gyud na siya mo intersect sa atong test line or sa kato atong imaginary nato na lapis. Okay, let's have an example here. Let's say ato ang function atong i-graph kay y is equal to 2x plus 4. Okay, let's say let's change that kay maragamay ang ato ang graph. Let's say 2x plus 1 lang. Okay. So, kung ato ni siyang i-graph, sayo na kayo kay slope-intercept form naman siya daan. So, kuha na to iyahang y-intercept which is positive 1. So, naadiri ang positive 1. Then, we have the slope na 2. So, that means sa katagkaduha, 1, 2, nya, agto ta sa right o ikausa. So, our next point is here. Nya, let's just draw a line to represent this graph. Okay, I'm sorry if the line is not straight. Okay, I am having difficulty with just using the mouse to draw the straight line. Pero imagine na lang na straight na nga tong line na gigamit dira. Okay, how do we determine now the domain and range of this function? Diba, linear function ni? So, saan na to pag-determine ang domain and range niya? If you recall, to look for the domain, tanawon ra na to yung x-axis. Okay? Yeah, tanaw na to ang limits kung asa ra kutob highest values or unsa man nimo pagtawag dra ang limits sa iyahang x-axis. Yeah, kung atong hunahunaon, since kani siya na graph, naaman siya arrowheads. Na siya arrowheads, 'di ba? Then the arrowheads indicate na mo extend pa gyud na siya infinitely. Watong buto hunahunaon, ang iyahang domain mo extend siya infinitely padung ubos or padung sa left. So, kung atong kuan, dili mo extend pa ni siya. Extend pa gina siya. The same goes when you go to the right. Extend pa na siya. Hantod sa hantod. So, ang domain di ay ana niya, if we will write it in symbols, you can say that the domain extends from negative infinity kay di ta ka-determine og value kay magsigira man gyud siya og padayon nag-extend. So from negative infinity to positive infinity. Mo na ang domain sa ato ang function kan linear function. The same goes for the range. If you look at the range of this function, di ba, ang y-intercept man to tong tan-awon. Kung atong analyson, walay kaundangan or way katapusan ang iyahang range kay kung ato i-extend ang function, ang graph, padakon pa natong samot ang graph, mo-extend man sad ni siya kay tungod sa iyang arrowhead. So, the same with the domain, our range is from negative infinity to positive infinity. Mo na ang domain and range atong function. Or, kung ato lang analyson, tanan number na naa sa number line, pwede mahimong value para sa ato ang linear function. So, if we will write this in simpler form, the domain of this function can be written as any element of the real number. So, the domain here can be written as, any element, so this is the element symbol of the real number system. So, since nag-extend man siya, naa siya negative integers, pwede siya 0, pwede siya positive integers, and all the numbers in between. So, we can simply write that the domain for the linear function is x is an element of R. So, R there represents real numbers. Okay, how about the range? The same thing goes for the range. So we will write here y is an element of R, where y is the range, where y is an element for any where y is an element of the of R or any real number. Sorry. So I hope you understood unsa na ang domain and range of the linear function. So mo gina siyang domain and range sa linear function. Kay i-graph nimo ana dili man pareha sa atong previous example sa other video na naay mga limit. Let's say for example, ani lang ang ato ang graph, dili man siya naay limit lang. So since it is a graph that utilizes a line with arrowheads on both of its sides or both of its ends. So essentially, yung domain and range is any element of R. So, to sum it all up, if function f is defined by f of x is equal to mx plus b, where m is not equal to 0, then the domain of the function is R and the range of the function is R. In symbols, mao ni siya. Domain is x such as x is an element of R, then range is y such as y is an element of R. The same ra ni sa atong gi-answer pod ganina, which is here. The domain and the range is essentially R. Okay, let's practice. Adita sa mga practice activities nato. So, determine whether each of the following is a linear function or not. Check yes if it is a linear function and no if it is not. Write the degree of the function. For linear functions, identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so timanan lang nato when we say degree gani highest exponent. Kinadak ang exponent na pwede na naa sa ato ang given item. So let's analyze. The first one we have f of x is equal to 6x minus 7. So exponent ni 7 is 0, exponent ni x is 1. So pila man ang degree ani niya? Highest exponent niya is 1. So linear function ba na kung na siya exponent na 1? Yes. Pila man ang iyahang slope? Slope niya is 6. Iyahang y-intercept is negative 7. Okay. What if naa diri f of x is equal to 4x? So, pilay degree ani ni x? We have a degree of 1. Linear function ba na? Yes. Pila ang iyahang slope? It is 4 and then iyang y-intercept is 0. For the last example, we have f of x is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 4. So, ang exponent ani ni 4 is 0, ni 4x kay 1, and obviously ni x squared kay 2. So, pilay degree niya? 2. Is it a linear function? No. So, dili ta magkuha sa iyahang slope o intercept. Okay. Let's have last example. So, here, we have to complete the table. So, mo ni siya ang atong example ganina, solving for the value of the function. So, we have to complete the table. What if ang value daw ni f is negative 2? So, we have to solve. So, if f is negative 2, pwede ragali na imo ning i-mental math. If hanas jud kaayo og mental math, dali ra ni siya i-mental math pod. So, if f is negative 2, or the value of x rather is negative 2, you will get the value of the function which is negative 6. So, sulat sa nato negative 6 sa table. What if we have f of positive 1? Pila may value sa tuang function? So, that will become 3 times 1 or positive 3. And lastly, what if we have f of 5? So, pila may value sa to ang function? We will have 3 times 5 or that is simply equal to 15. Now, atong ihatag ang iyahang mga ordered pairs. So, unsa may ordered pairs na atong na come up with? The first ordered pair, we have negative 2, negative 6. Ang ikaduha na ordered pair, we have the value of x na 1, 3. And lastly, we have 515. So, mauni ang ato ang ordered pairs. So, that is our discussion for linear functions. Then, since taas-taas naman dyan ni siya na video, we will cut this off and then I will have another video discussing about the graphs of linear functions and how to solve problems involving linear functions. So, I hope na nakasabot mo sa ato ang lesson karon regarding linear functions. And as always, if you have questions or you need to review our previous lessons, you can have or you can watch the other videos that I have with our math discussions that you can find in this YouTube channel. So again, this is Teacher Claire and I hope you have learned something today. Happy studying!